Hi everyone, my name is Bo. I research and teach logic here at the University of Toronto, and this is just a video to start off the class I'm now teaching, which is an introduction to modern symbolic logic. Here I just want to give an overview of what sort of things we'll be doing and what you can expect. Mostly we'll be working through propositional logic in the first half of the course, and then predicate logic or first order logic in the second half. Now before we begin, I want to address something that has been on my mind for some time, which is that this course causes some considerable anxiety for some students. I know this in part because of what students have said to me, and in part because it caused me a lot of anxiety when I took it as an undergraduate. And I think that logic in particular causes this anxiety for two reasons. Maybe more, but at least two. I've only thought of two. First, it's not what a lot of humanities students are used to in terms of the means of assessment. We're dealing here in problem sets and that kind of thing, rather than essays, which many philosophy students at least are quite accustomed to writing. So there's that mode of assessment that's quite a bit different. Second, there's this connection with math, which I think causes a particular sort of dread. And I've tried to address these things in this course in two ways. Concerns about the means of assessment, I think, is helped by the fact that the book we're using, this Language, Proof, and Logic, second edition, allows you to submit your assignments for automatic grading before you finally submit them. So you can get back any errors and fix them, and at least when it comes time to do your final submission, there should be no surprises. The second source of anxiety, namely the concerns about the content itself, I think can be helped a bit by emphasizing that the logic we're studying here is not some artifact that fell from the skies. It's the product of human ingenuity, it's an artifact that we created, and many debates went into how it should be created and how it shouldn't be created. As a result, there are a lot of different non-classical systems of logic which we won't cover in this course, but which I'm going to cover in optional videos, which you can watch if you like. The reason I do this is because I think that the way that logic is often presented is in this very cut and dried way, and so sometimes these things which are really arbitrary restraints in some respects on the way that logic works or the way that logic can work seem to some students counterintuitive. And I think the problem is that when students find these things counterintuitive, they think it's a sign that they just don't understand logic, rather than that they're actually just puzzled by some of these aspects of classical logic as we normally teach it in first-year courses like this. The message I want to send with this is just that if you don't understand something about the course, it's not a sign that you don't understand logic per se. For example, if you think that there's something very weird about the fact that constants have to name an object in the domain and can't name anything like Sherlock or Gandalf, which we're going to see in this series of lectures, that fact that you find this aspect of classical first-order logic strange is not a sign that you don't understand logic per se. If it were, then people working in free logic, which gets rid of this requirement, would also not understand logic. So what I'm trying to tell you with these optional videos, which you can watch or not watch at your leisure, is that if you find certain things strange, it might actually be a very good sign. With these things in mind, let's turn to the syllabus. I've linked the syllabus in the description so you can read it there, but I just want to read it through here for everyone as well, and that's what this will be. So my email is here, boaz.schumann@mail.utoronto.ca, and as I've said, the course questions are to be asked on Piazza, unless they relate to private matters like accommodations. My main reason for doing this is because I get often enough many versions of the same question, and I would like to be able to answer them all at once, and I would also like to make the answers available for people who maybe are wondering the same things but haven't gotten around to asking. So all questions will be on Piazza. You can post anonymously if you prefer, and I or the TAs or even sometimes the other students will answer them there. So Logic Labs will be held on Tuesdays starting next Tuesday, May 11th. This is the same day that the assignment is due, and so I encourage you to come to the tutorials with questions about the assignment and so forth. I'll also hold informal drop-ins on Wednesdays from 12 to 1 p.m., and I'll be beginning that on May 12th as well. I'll put a link on Quercus and on Piazza. The lectures are going to be held here on YouTube, and I'll be posting them on Wednesdays. These are going to fall into three categories. There are the main lectures, which are what the course is based on. There will also be supplements, which will be mostly additional material based on questions people have asked on Piazza or have asked in tutorials that I'd like to answer at greater length, problems people raise and that sort of thing. The third category is optional lectures, which mostly will deal with things like other systems of logic and how they address the problems that we're thinking about in class. These are all purely optional, but I think it's fun to think about other systems of logic, and I find that it also goes a long way in terms of resolving certain confusions about why the logic we're studying for this course is the way it is. Now, roughly, this course falls into two halves. The first part of the course will introduce propositional logic, sometimes called zeroth order logic, and we'll be looking at arguments, formal symbolizations, and deductions. And then part two will extend these skills and techniques to predicate logic, or what's sometimes called first order logic, with a special emphasis on derivations. And if there's time left over at the end, we'll conclude with a look at first order set theory, although this will almost certainly be optional. One of the things I like to stress about this course is that it has such broad applicability to so many other areas of study, and I'll be flagging these things as we go. Now, the way to do well in this course, a subject that we'll return to in just a minute, is to study and practice very frequently. I often encourage students to treat it more like a language course, where you just have to get used to going through the translations and so forth to understand how the language works. Now, here's what a week in this course looks like. I've suggested study on days when things aren't due, although of course I don't mean to imply that you should be studying all day, every day, and this is why I've noted on Fridays and the weekends, take time to relax. Most of the course content and assessments center on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So on Tuesdays, you have the logic lab from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., and the assignment will be due midnight that day. The next day, I'll hold the Zoom drop-in and post the next round of lectures on YouTube. We saw the textbook and software for this course already, and we're going to be exploring it as we go. This is John Barwise and John Etchemendy's Language Proof and Logic. The one important thing to note here is that you need to buy a new copy of the text in order to get a unique key code which you'll use for submitting your assignments. Now, there are many things to be said about this software, and I've found that one of the things students appreciated most and made most use of was that it allows you to test submit your assignment, get back the grade report, modify it as you need to, and then submit it again for final assessment. So you can submit it as many times as you like to find out how you'll do before you have to submit it for the final deadline. And so there should be no surprises. The other nice thing is that you get the grades back almost immediately. I think within about 5 minutes at most, they email you your grade, since it's all done automatically. And we'll be talking about how this software works over the course of the lectures. On then to grading policy. So the grade for this course will be determined by weekly homework assignments and an online midterm and a final exam. There are going to be 11 total weekly assignments, and only 10 of these are going to be assessed. So I've put here that these are worth 6% each. What I'm going to do is drop the lowest mark from your list of assignments. So for instance, if you had an assignment you didn't do so well on, that one will just be dropped for the final assessment. But I want to stress that it's very important that you do all the assignments, because if you don't, you'll wind up behind for the later stuff. The way that this course is structured, each chapter is preliminary to what comes next. So I really strongly urge you not to skip any of the assignments, even the final one, which will help you to prepare for the final exam. Now, the midterm exam will be posted online at the beginning of the June study break, which begins June 15th and runs to July 5th. This midterm has to be completed by June 24th. It'll take between 60 and 90 minutes to complete, and solutions will be posted the next day. Just to clarify, you can write this exam at any time within that period, but as will be clear with the instructions on the exam, you must write it on your own and not with the help of any other students. Both exams are open book, and so you can use whatever notes you like, and you can use the lecture videos and so forth. But again, there is a time limit of 90 minutes, and so you should make sure you're prepared before you go in. One final thing about the assignments, I encourage you to back up your files that you create with the programs frequently, because computers crash, hard drives die, and so forth. You can save them on Google Drive or Dropbox or anything else that works for you, but it is useful to back them up. Now there follows the weekly schedule, and we'll be working through this as we go. I just want to flag a few things at first. The first thing is that these ordered pairs of numbers between angled brackets correspond to the sub-lectures for each week. As I mentioned before, these are usually quite brief. On average, I think they'll be about 5 minutes long, and there are usually about 5 or 6 of them per week. There are 2 exceptions to this. One is the third week, where we'll cover both the logic of atomic sentences and the Boolean connectives. I've combined these because our treatment of the logic of atomic sentences is informal, and the Boolean connectives are relatively straightforward. This way we'll be able to cover the first 2 sections of the textbook through the semester. As you can see, there's a study break between June 14th and June 28th. When classes recommence, we'll double up on conditionals and the logic of conditionals, again, going through the 9 and 10 lecture series. One final thing about the study break. Assignments are typically due on Tuesdays, but the study break also begins on a Tuesday, and I don't want to have an assignment due during the study break. So I've shifted the due date for assignment 6 to the Monday before the break begins, when ordinarily it would be due on Tuesday. If you need an extension till Tuesday, just email me and I'll give it to you. Then after the study break and our look at conditionals, we'll go on to the first order quantificational logic. Now I've added a little note here about how to do well in this course. The way is practice. A good deal of the coursework involves translating sentences from English to symbolic logic and vice versa. Furthermore, producing derivations can be made much easier by establishing a sound basis in the reading of symbolic sentences and by developing techniques and strategies for arriving at solutions. All this requires considerable practice. Accordingly, it's a good idea to treat PHL 245 like a language course, which requires constant practice and repetition in order to establish proficiency and confidence. If you want any further practice problems in addition to the assignments, feel free to do the other problems in LPL and email me your solutions. I'd be happy to look them over for you and give advice where it's needed. The last thing to go over is the academic policies. This course will abide by the U of T's policies on academic integrity, special considerations, and accessibility accommodations. So for academic integrity, students are responsible for familiarizing themselves with and abiding by the University of Toronto's Code of Behavior on Academic Matters, which is available online. The most important thing to stress here is that submitting someone else's work as though it's your own is cheating. Special consideration. Students who, for legitimate and verifiable reasons, have to miss coursework or hand in coursework late may email me at boaz.schumann@mail.utoronto.ca. Legitimate reasons include religious observances as well as health matters. Requests for special consideration that are not filed promptly, that is, no more than a day after the assessment is due, will be denied. All requests must be filed before the course is over. Accessibility accommodations. If you need any accommodations, please do not hesitate to contact me by email so that we can find a solution for you. For details on accessibility at the U of T, please consult the Accessibility Services webpage linked here, www.utm.utoronto.ca/accessibility/welcome-accessibility-services. Equity, diversity, and excellence. This course and conduct within it will at all times promote the University of Toronto's stated aim to promote equity and diversity in the name of pursuing excellence. You can read the statement at the link below. Well, that wraps up week 1, so if you have any questions, just let me know on Piazza, and otherwise I'll see you in week 2.